Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Well, I did have a siesta last week. I was with a group of 5,000 attorneys. Wow. If anyone had slipped on a banana peel, 5,000 attorneys. Imagine that. All PI attorneys. Okay. Now I'm back, and we're back with the Ask Brien radio show, which is a business show that's been on the air since January 2017, more than 7.5 years. And each week, we interview somebody that'll either teach us something about a business skill, could be Facebook advertising, could be inventory control for a business, could be how to do accounting, something where you can learn something from business that way. Or, alternatively, we have somebody that's created a business and we can learn how they went from, hey, I just came up with this concept, to I have a thriving business, I'm making lots and lots of money, lots and lots of clients, and how did I go from A to Z? And that's what we try to do each and every week. But our show is based on the name Ask Brien, AskBrien, and everybody for the last 7.5 years, 7.5 years later, they still are asking, why is the show called Ask Brien? My name is Peter. My co-host is Tracy. There's no Brian there, and that's one issue. And the other issue is, why is Brian spelled with an E? Because all my friends in high school and college, when they were named Brian, it was Bryan or Brian, but nobody was spelling it Brien, except for the people down at the Irish pub down the post, and they were O'Briens. So, Tracy, explain this. I'm befuddled.
I'm sure that you are, but I'm sure it has nothing to do with the E's. Oh, did I say that out loud? Okay, I'm sorry. I am excited about the E's today because we actually have an E in our subject matter, but I'll just leave the T's hanging there for that. But we are all about we're without our female estrogen engineer today, but we are still celebrating our engineer. So hello, Andrew.
Hello, thank you.
And we had a full-on estrogen last week, so I guess now our guest, we're going to be outnumbered, but that's okay. And that is all because of our experts. Our experts are really the whole heartfelt center of the Ask Brien radio show, because we are supporting entrepreneurs with all of the knowledge and education that they bring. And an expert, by definition, is someone who's invested more than 10,000 hours in their business category or niche. And I know for sure that I stopped counting a long time ago for myself and Peter, and our guest today that I happen to have the luxury of knowing personally have well more than 10,000 hours in their experience and expertise. So we get to hear a lot more from them about that. And yes, I mentioned education, but I'll say it again because it's probably the most important E of all of our E's. And for that, I just am very enthusiastic about it. How about you, Peter?
I'm excited!
And there goes the eardrum.
What about enthusiasm? Where's the enthusiasm?
Yes. Yeah, I said I had enthusiasm, but it just got squashed. So,
you need passion. You want to be successful, you need passion.
But since we have not just one expert, but two experts with us today, I think we should just jump right in and make the introduction, because we are going to be talking all about customer experience strategy today, and you can't get a better E than that.
But I thought that every show you like to have that thing about Greece. What is that? From that movie, Grease?
Oh, my favorite E. Well, thank you, because, see, I didn't actually say my own favorite E last week because you weren't here. But, yes, based on the big love for Olivia Newton-John and Grease Lightning, I will say that our entire team here at the Ask Brien radio show is electrifying.
Now, if anybody on the other side still has their ears, because nobody warned them, I do have a couple of quick questions. So normally we just have one person we're interviewing. Today we're going to interview two. So I want to get a brief introduction from each one of you, and then we're going to get into the show. So Let's start with Arancis. Can you give me a little background before you started working at the current company, what your background was?
Absolutely. I actually started my adult life in theater, which it turns out is a really wonderful groundwork for experience strategy. So after getting my master's in theater, ended up working at Weight Watchers and leading experience strategy there, both digitally and in person globally for many years. Led many programs in both their program and service innovation. And then after leaving there, left to work with Dave, who you'll meet in just a moment, over at Stone Mantle, to help translate some of the transformational experience work that we had done at WW for category leaders in lots of other domains, from banking and healthcare all the way over to retail and travel.
Okay, we're going to be back with you in a minute, but I just want to get a little background from Dave. Dave, if you can give a little background prior to starting your company, and then also a brief analysis of how and why you started the company, and then we're going to switch back to Arancis.
Sure. So I'm Dave Norton. I'm the founder and principal of Stone Mantle. This is, we're going into our 20th year as a company. And we do a lot of great work for a lot of different brands that you would be familiar with. Companies like Marriott and Royal Caribbean, but also banks that you're like Truist, and telecom companies like T-Mobile, and just a wide range of different organizations that are trying to create better experiences for their customers and create more value. Go ahead.
No, I just want to know, prior to starting the company, if you can just say, what your background was before you started the company, and then the reason why you started it.
So I started the company in 2005. Before that, I was the head of strategy and research for a design firm in the Minneapolis area, and worked with them for about 9 years. But I've always been interested in experience strategy and how experiences are created. And one of my early career moments was working alongside the author of The Experience Economy, Joe Pine, who is pretty famous worldwide for really introducing this idea of experiences as economic value. And that piqued my interest, and I just kind of built up my skills and capabilities first with the other company, and then when I started my own company, I just kept going from there.
So what exactly did you do for companies? I mean, you mentioned names out there, Marriott, all these companies. What's your primary focus? What do you do for these companies? Are you brand awareness, brand reputation, feedback surveys, publicity? What exactly is your category when you say strategy?
We typically do primary research with their customers to identify what are the most meaningful experiences that they're having with the company, why they're having those experiences, or what could be the most meaningful experiences with their company. And then we turn those insights into strategic goals and objectives that the organization needs to go out and execute against. Sometimes that's through digital delivery, sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's through training, sometimes it's through physical design. There's all kinds of different ways that you execute against an experience, and we have backgrounds and expertise in all of the above. So it's really about identifying that new experiential opportunity and turning it into value for the company.
Arancis, I have a question for you. So if somebody was interested in wanting to hire you guys, I imagine you're going to have to do a big questionnaire and get some information. But what's your goal for a new company that comes in and says, I want to use your services? What exactly are you going to go over with them, and what exactly are you going to come up with a plan? What exactly are you going to do for them?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly do extensive research on behalf of our customers, but where we really begin is in an effort to understand what their customer really wants them to do for them and how they can meet the customer where they are to deliver value in a contextually unique and valuable way. So what do I mean by that? You know, we hire companies constantly to do jobs for us. Oftentimes, the company doesn't deliver on the promise they've made in a way that fits our lives. And so what we really help customers do is understand who their customer is, where their customer is using their product, how their customer is using it, and how they can deliver maximum value in the moment that they are needed. So you'll hear us talk about context over and over again in this, and situation. And what we mean by that is really, in essence, meeting the customer where they are to provide that value instead of offering value into a void, which is, I think, where we find friction and frustration with so many of the companies that we hire.
And do you do this just in an external environment for the companies, or do you actually dig deep into the company culture and the employees that are working at that company to find these things out?
Yeah, so for us, the ideal solution, the one that tends to provide the most value for companies overall, really hits on a trifecta of value for the company, value for the employee, and value for the customer. And the most elegant and sustainable solutions for companies really do hit on all three. But how we usually find those answers, certainly service providers of an experience are uniquely valuable to this exploration because they tend to have a depth of insight into how the customer is using a product or service, what they really want out of it, what they love about it, what they get irritated by. And so we often find ourselves talking to service providers of different sorts. That said, nobody knows better than the customer. And we have some pretty unique methodologies for talking to customers to extract hidden insights from them, right? You hear over and over again when you talk to people about human beings, they say, oh, well, they don't know what they don't know, or customers don't really know what they want. And we talked to somebody earlier this week who, of course, used that famous Ford motor car story. You know, if he had just listened to the customers, he would have delivered a faster horse and wouldn't have created the automobile. Well, yes, I agree. They don't know the form of what they want, but they can tell us a lot about what they need their products to do. And if we meet the need in innovative ways, then we've probably struck gold. And so what did Henry Ford do? He gave them a faster horse. It just happened to be automated and powered by a big, strong engine that met the job to be done, which was to get them from point A to point B faster.
What percentage of your clients are online and offline? And when I say that, I'm meaning exclusively, right? Because every company out there, I think, nowadays has a website. So what percentage of your companies that you work with or clients are online companies versus online and, have a store or presence or whatever?
I mean, like you said, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
The vast majority of our clients are companies that have multiple channels. In fact, that's one of the biggest challenges that they deal with. So they are, they've got a retail location, they've got partnerships, they've got online solutions, and they're trying to manage this very broad set of and varied sense of engagement with customers to deliver solutions. So, to your point, that's a lot of companies today. We do some work with companies that are solely online or solely digital, but the majority have multiple channels that we're delivering through. Yeah.
Often I find when companies do research into surveys and feedback, you're dealing with still, even with that, just a certain segment, right? There's certain people that, okay, I'll stay online and give feedback, or or if it's a bad experience, I'll respond. Even if it's a super duper experience, I may or may not. Bad experiences, though, I find are more likely to be responsive. So how do you filter out and try to, say, if I got 500 people responded and 300 of them say all this stuff is bad, and 50 say it's good, and the others don't even deal with it. How do you determine whether or not it's really a problem?
Well, solving for problems is one aspect of what we focus on, and sometimes companies refer to that as like voice of the customer or CX type of research. And, you can use statistical modeling to help you determine whether or not you're getting the proper percentages of respondents to a particular challenge. But that's only one aspect of what we do. A lot of what we do is to help companies to describe the unknown, opportunities that they can't immediately see or that even their customers aren't really describing. So we spend a lot of time in people's homes talking to them. We do a lot of observational research. We use all kinds of different research techniques. Technically, it's called triangulation, where you have multiple techniques that you're using to gather data to identify new opportunity areas. So a lot of the things that we do fall more into the innovation camp than they do into the problem resolution camp.
Now, I don't know if this is confidential. I don't know who's going to answer this question for us, but can you guys give an example of something, of a company that you did some information, some research, and they discovered that there's a new product or a new service, and they were able to implement it? I don't know if there's confidentiality or not, but if not, if you could go over one of those, and either one of you, Arances or Dave, either one of you can answer that.
Do you want me to go first, Arances?
That's fine.
Go for it, Dave.
All right. Gosh, we've worked on so many different projects over the years. If you've gone to the Royal Caribbean's private island, Coco Cay, you've seen some of our work there. We help to do all of the strategy work for Coco Cay and all of the research associated with it. That's their private island. It's one of their two private destinations that they have. That was some of the original work. Some of the work that we've done actually helped to guide the Smithsonian as they were redesigning the American History Gallery. Those were early on projects that we have done for them. We can't name some of our more recent clients, but we've done everything from helping to redesign the booking process, the digital booking process for large travel companies, to helping financial institutions to imagine what the future of artificial intelligence in their solutions is going to look like. So there's a wide range. We've helped a particularly famous television channel think about the future of streaming technology, and so we cover a lot of different topics, all of which are related to this idea that Arances was talking about, where we identify what is the new job to be done, the new opportunity, the new need that the customer has, and what does that mean for the company.
Arances, we have about 25 seconds, so I don't know if you can answer or not. If you can, that's fine. If not, we'll just probably take an early commercial break.
Yeah, some of my favorite projects have really been those that aren't so sexy. We helped a garment company track the life cycle of a garment and use it to create a community among fans who shared interest in that area. And so it's those where you get to see sort of ordinary objects being transformed into meaningful experiences that really excite me.
And us. We got to take a quick break. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. And you know what they say about our radio show? Like no other station in the world. We're like no other station in the world. Who are people like us?
All right. Well, I would love to talk through, basically I want to talk about the pathway of the customer experience journey. I know as a business owner myself, I feel marginally obsessed with customer service, but I also feel like that is, as a business owner in today's competitive landscape and market saturation and all the things that are going on in the business climate today, that a business owner should be obsessed with client experience and client service. But if someone was coming to work with you, where should they even begin in terms of like a focus or redirect or paying attention to their customer experience journey?
I'll let
that's a
Dave
great
start
question.
off there.
Okay. All right.
Don't all
That's a great
speak at once.
question,
Don't all speak at once.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've noticed about companies that are really successful in developing a great customer experience is that they're able to anticipate what customers are going to want in the future. So there's kind of like two different groups out there. There's the companies that are trying their hardest to be as responsive as they possibly can to what customers say they want. And so they'll send out the survey and they'll ask customers questions and try to respond positively. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's good practice per se. But then there's a whole group of companies who are able to anticipate what customers are likely going to want and need. And they're the ones that get all of the big kudos. They make more money. They're far more successful. And one of the things that most of those companies have in common is they all have what we call a point of view. And by a point of view, I mean they have some kind of insight into the near future needs of their customers. And they've taken that insight and they've internalized it as an organization. They've applied it to their business model, and they're able to execute against that insight in such a way that the customer's like, yes, that's exactly what I think I want for this particular situation. And so they're able to be ahead of the game to actually anticipate what customers will want. So the first step, I think, one of the first steps perhaps is to establish your company's point of view. Francis, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the questions we're asked quite often in this work is, experience strategist. That sounds really cool. I'm passionate about experience, and I think of myself as a strategist. Am I an experience strategist? And the truth is the people we work with sit in all sorts of different parts of the company. We often work with people who sit in marketing or product or innovation or a discrete experience strategy function within an organization. But the thing all these people have in common is that they are doing exactly what Dave is describing. They are collecting the data, and sometimes that is trended data, like what's happening in the world for our customer, what's happening in the world for our category. And sometimes it's really specific to how a customer is using their product where the customer's really finding value and what they believe based on all this data is going to drive value in the near future. And then these people are advocates, right? So they're collecting compelling data about the customer. They're translating that into something really clear and achievable for the organization. And then they're advocating throughout the organization to get everybody on board. And so, we underestimate that skill of persuasion, I think, so often when we think about what it takes to succeed, especially in larger organizations, but it's true really in any size organization, that once you have this data, it has to become really important to the organization. And people have to rally around it and design toward it. And that's so much of what we take our clients through, whether we're doing individual project work with them or if they're working with us in our collaborative program where we bring lots of companies together to answer big, hairy questions, or even in our certification program where people are becoming certified in experience strategy. At the end of the day, they're taking home the same lessons in different ways, which is how do I get so confident and clear about where my customer's going that I can get everybody else in my organization on board to make it happen, to understand the importance of it. And that comes in the form of lots of both qual and quant data that is compelling, but it also comes in the form of really understanding your customers holistically instead of just in a single moment, which is one of the things we see really get companies sort of mixed up in their direction. They're like, well, we could solve this one tiny problem in this moment, but does it fit for where the customer's going? Will it matter in 2 years? And that's a big part, of course, of why we've created our annual trend report to help companies along to make better strategic decisions for their customers.
And so what I'm hearing, and two things that are really standing out to me, are the point of view from the business owner around the customer experience, but then also how much research that needs to be involved in really honing in on what you were saying, Dave, about really being able to anticipate or be in the moment of what is happening that the client wants, future expectations, right? So I think business owners are so busy running the day-to-day and don't necessarily have full research teams to support them. And so it's often hard to basically deliver what is right in the moment, but then also have this futuristic expectation approach, which I love. But what would be just one tip in 60 seconds or less, because we're going to have a break, that a business owner could start today that would help them with that future expectation?
Well, I think it's important for any business leader to be regularly asking their customers, what are your concerns? What are your challenges, right? Because if you can hear from them directly what they're dealing with, that gets your mind in the right place. But we also need to be thinking about what's going on in the world around them. And if we can kind of keep those two lenses, we can keep that future-focused point of view.
I love that. Well, we're going to take a break for the sponsor, right, Peter?
Absolutely. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. And now a word from our sponsor. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. And Tracy, you had some more questions to ask both Dave and Ensis.
Yes, I wanted to continue on the idea of research and what we can do in any phase of our entrepreneurial journey, right? So I had an opportunity to be at an industry interview with Stephen Bartlett, who, if you don't know who he is, everyone that listens to the show knows that I'm really deep into the podcasting space. But Stephen Bartlett is the host of a podcast called The Diary of a CEO. And I share this because it was one of the most fascinating customer experience strategies that I may have heard in a long time, which is he has an entire team that's focused on research that, because ultimately his audience is his customer, right? But it starts with his guests. So he has an entire team of people that research the guests before they ever even come on. And one of the things that they do is they figure out how or what one of the guests' favorite songs is somehow. I have no idea how they do that. You probably have more insights on that than I. But when the guest walks into the studio, they have a certain amount of CO2 in the studio to keep the guest energy up. And the guest's favorite song is playing, and the guest automatically just goes, oh, I love this song. Like it's a happy accident. and what it does is it obviously just like immediately puts the guest at ease. And there are 100 other things that he talked about during that industry interview that he does based on his research team and to create the most optimal experience for his guests that ultimately translates into an amazing experience for his audience. I wanted to share that with you because I wanted to, to see if you had any insights on that, because it just sounds like something you guys would geek out on. But also just like how can just a professional service provider like myself that doesn't have a research team of 50 people, how can we provide that level of intricate detail for customer experience?
I'll jump in and say that I first heard a story like that when I was working with a team at 11 Madison Park, the illustrious restaurant in New York City, known far and wide for the research that it does on individual guests, something that many in the industry have now taken to doing, a bit of sleuthing and listening in. Most recently, folks probably saw it if they were watching The Bear on FX. There's a great scene in there where they delight somebody with a Chicago hot dog. And that was the first story really that I heard of 11 Madison was a server overhearing a customer saying, oh, I came to New York City and I got everything except one of those dirty water dogs. And they came back and plated a New York City street hot dog for them beautifully and served it at their restaurant. And so I do think that sort of paying attention to your customer really matters. And so it's whether it's in the moment that you spend with them, we work with a very large home builder, and that's something they really emphasize. They show their customers at the end of the home purchase journey, they give them a welcome home gift. But instead of giving them a generic welcome home gift, they really prioritize having their service team listen closely to the customer and provide that moment of real delight and relationship building by giving them something that's meaningful for them. And you can imagine what that does for their word of mouth. And so how could any business owner do this? Well, every business owner has interactions with customers, whether it's digital or in person. Certainly you have more opportunity for relationship building in person. But one of the things I guide companies to do all of the time is to ask their customers for very specific data that can customize that experience for them. And I'm usually talking about it in my work with Dave in terms of what is your goal and how would you measure success around that goal? Because a lot of what we're doing is helping with transformational journeys. So a customer, if they're on a transformational journey, probably has something they want out of it. So that's really important data for you to collect. How you play that back to them meaningfully through a digital experience. But like I said, do an individualized experience, certainly in a smaller business like you're talking about. Oh, there are just so many opportunities to do that and so many simple ways to catalog that. But even if you were just going to do it from a research perspective, stepping away from this highly customized service, our favorite question you can ask is, was this experience that you had with me, was it time well spent? And understanding whether or not the time your customer spent with you felt like time that was well spent, that is really good data. Because I can promise you if the answer is no, you've got really great data that you need to fix something. But if the answer is yes, then you've got some early data for understanding what's working.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to be taking a quick break. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. And Tracy, you're on.
Well, I personally am so inspired by this conversation because, as I mentioned before, I am obsessed with customer service and customer experiences. So I could continue this conversation all day. I know our listeners would absolutely love to continue the conversation with the two of you. How can they make that happen?
Thanks for asking. You can find everything about the work that we're doing at stonemantle.co. So that is .co, not .com. And you can also hear lots of our thoughts over on our Substack, which is The Experience Strategist, written by Dave. He's sharing so much of the work that goes into our certifications. It's fully accessible and completely free. And we would love to have you guys subscribe and to begin a conversation with you there. It is just a wealth of information. And then follow us on LinkedIn, whether it's at Stone Mantle or Dave Norton or Rancis Staffel.
Well, and I personally just want to say that Experience Strategy is one of my most favorite podcasts. So if you haven't checked it out, you do want to check it out. And when you go to stonemantle.co, be sure to sign up for their upcoming webinar because if you have a chance to have access to David Rancis, take it. Trust me, it'll be time well spent. And if you need any of these links or want to refer back to any of this amazing customer strategy, experience strategy tips that we've given today, don't forget about the Ask Brien podcast. And of course, that's AskBrien, the podcast, where you can access all of our previous episodes, especially download the resources and hyperlinks from this one, and you will find the Ask Brien podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Peter.
Well, thank you, Tracy. So, have a question for Dave. What was the biggest challenge that you've had to deal with in your company in the 20 years you've been running it?
Are you asking in terms of the biggest client challenge that we've had to deal with, or the biggest challenge to?
Well, both. We have about 3 minutes, so we could do each one first.
Okay.
First, let's do the biggest challenge of the company, and then we'll do the biggest challenge of a customer, and then what the solution was.
Okay. So in 2008 and 2009, when everything crashed, the whole financial world, most of our clients were banks. And we went through this crazy time where we watched one of our biggest clients at the time was a company called Wachovia, great customer experience company. And they got split up into different pieces because their business model fell apart. And I remember we were out doing research with them, and half the team that was doing research had to stay home because technically they had been fired that day. And then the next day they were back on the project. So that was a hairy time. That was a time when if you made mistakes with people's financial lives, it would destroy your company. And so we had a lot of late night calls from a lot of companies that were a lot of other banks as well. Personally, for our little company, we're a boutique consultancy, and our biggest challenge is dealing with the ups and downs that the companies go through, right? So we're B2B, and we're dependent upon market forces that are going on. Companies tend not to prioritize customer experience when their bottom line doesn't look very good, and so we have to kind of ride that wave of when things are going well, we're going to have lots of clients, and then when companies are not doing well, they're going to be focused on basic blocking and tackling. And so we have to have a business model that allows for that as well.
I like to use blocking and tackling because tonight is opening day for NFL. All right, so
Right.
Arances, we have about less than a minute left. So if you want to go over the biggest challenge that you think any client had at the company that you overcame, but we do have 1 minute max.
I mean, I think the biggest challenges often are not understanding what the customer wants, but especially in the large organizations that we work with, getting companies with disparate perspectives on board to support the customer needs. So again, I think that advocacy is a huge part of the role, and feeling confident and competent advocating on behalf of the customer in a way that's compelling and that your collaborators within a company can actually hear and act on.
Well, thank you very much, guys and girls. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Over and out.